All right, guys, what is going on, man? It is December 11th, 2022. I hope you guys are having a blessed weekend and having a great holidays. We are now in that time period between Thanksgiving and Christmas where we don't accomplish anything. All we can think about is the holidays, man. And like I said, I hope you guys are having a blessed one. All right, man. Today's video is going to be super controversial, but man, it's been one that I've been wanting to do for such a long time because everybody has an opinion, and like the future is finally here, like it's coming. And we're going to talk about playoff expansion. And I have an opinion on it. All right. This is a pre warning, right? All right. We live in a world today where people can't have opinions, right? So don't like go trashing me in the comments if my opinion is different than yours or whatever and spread hate, right? If you have an opinion, let me know what that opinion is in the comments and we can discuss it. Maybe we'll talk about it on the next show. But whatever it is, man, just keep the like hate speech and stuff like that out of the comments. There's no need for that toxicity in here. Um that being said, all right, so obviously, you guys know in 2024 we are expanding the college football playoffs to 12 teams. In my opinion on this, right, I am a firm believer in non-playoff expansion. I know a lot of people are for it. They're like, oh man, there's going to be so much more opportunity to get in, and it's going to be better games, and it's just going to be such an amazing thing. And you're right. You are 100% right, man. The opportunity is there for teams that might never have a chance to make the playoffs. Um, in your opinion, that could possibly make it now. Smaller schools, group of five teams would make it every year. A group of five team would ever make it with the format that they use now. Um, but obviously with new things there's certain amount of flaws, and when you receive something you also have to remember you're taking something away. So that's what we're going to talk about today and how I'm going to base my opinion off of this, right? My first point, right, is you know bowl games are already meaningless, right? Any bowl game outside of New Year's Six to me is meaningless. To players is meaningless. Even New Year's Six games really don't mean much anymore. Before the 14 playoff, they used to mean a lot. It used to be conference pride, last like hurrah with your team. But players don't see it like that anymore, and that's completely fine. They have a right if they're getting drafted or projected to go very high, to opt out and do what they need to do, and I have no fault against them for that. Um, but the bowl games are meaningless now. And everything is so centered around this 14 playoff, right? ESPN has thrown all their money in advertising this 14 playoff, and it's really done so much damage to bowl season because they don't promote the bowls as being special like they used to, right? It used to mean something for an SEC team to go play in the Sugar Bowl, or an ACC team playing in the Orange Bowl, or Big Ten team going out west to play in the Rose Bowl against a Pac-12 team. It used to mean a lot, and it means absolutely nothing anymore because those teams that make it to those New Year's Six games are just teams that thought they should have made the playoffs, or maybe they're one win away from making the playoffs, and that's what their whole mindset was focused on. And that's understandable, man. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be in the 14 playoff. So, where the playoffs for me, right? I'm not this guy who's like, no playoffs. We need to go back to the old ways. I'm not that guy. I love the 14 playoff personally. I think four teams is perfect. Four teams have you avoided situations like you did in 2004. And I believe it was, I can't remember, whatever year like the Boise State team went like and won like crazy amount of games in a row, and they were undefeated and they were number 3 in the BCS. Like a team like that, I would have loved to see get their shot. And then the 2004 Auburn team, SEC champs, undefeated, didn't even get to go to the national championship. So you avoid situations like that when you have four teams. That's why I think four teams is perfect. All right. Very rarely in a season of college football do you have four teams or more than four teams that are deserving of a playoff spot. Now, hear me out when I say this, right? There's a difference between teams that we think are good enough to be in the playoff, and then there's teams that are deserving because their quality of work throughout game 1 through game 12 or 13 playing conference games was enough to get them into that playoff, right? It's all about, for me, right, what you do from start to finish. All right, I don't care what you did in the month of November if you lost 2 games in September. Um, I think college football is the greatest sport in the world because of this perfect mentality that you have to come in every single week. Now, you guys, obviously, this is a LSU channel. We're going on the more national scale today, but this playoff would have benefited LSU this year, right? LSU was not good enough to make the 14 playoff. Even when they were sitting at 5, nobody really believed that they were good enough to be in that 14 playoff. Now, if they would have won out, right, they would have been deserving of making the 14 playoff, but they would have got housed. They were not good enough to beat Georgia's and the Michigans and Ohio State. They're not good enough for that, right? This playoff would have benefited, and they probably would have gone into a playoff situation with 12 teams, maybe, if they would have won that A&M game. And even with the loss of Georgia, they still would have made it. So, like, I understand that aspect of things, and people saying, well, a lot more teams have a chance, right? And that is super cool. If you like giving people rewards for not accomplishing their goals during the regular season. Like I said, the reason why college football is so amazing is because you have to be perfect all year. Like when Alabama goes into a game in September and drops one to Ole Miss or somebody like that, that team has to turn it on to another level because they know they have to be absolutely perfect the rest of the year, or they have no chance of winning a national championship. And that's how it should be. I don't want to see a 3-loss Alabama team playing meaningless games, losing. That game at Tennessee this year, right, meant the absolute world to those Tennessee fans. And that game at LSU this year meant the absolute world to the college football world, because that was the game that pretty much solidified Alabama didn't make the playoffs. And those two games don't have as much meaning, right? At the time, yes, they have the meaning, but in hindsight, you go and look back and, let's say Alabama gets into, well, they would get into this playoff, right, with the 12-team format. They get in and they go in the whole damn thing. That takes away all of the accomplishments that happened during the regular season. And what is made college football the most exciting. If I wanted to watch a 6-loss team, make it to the playoffs, I would just go watch the NFL. That happens every week. The games during the regular season in the NFL mean absolutely nothing. Yeah, we watch them for 18 weeks, and not a single one of those games has any meaning of significance at all. And the people, they always push back against me, and they say, well, the conference championship games will be like playoff games, and they'll be more competitive and stuff like that because people are actually still playing for something. Well, let me break this to you, right? A college football regular season is literally like watching the playoffs every single week. Every single week you're watching a playoff game, a game that if a team loses, they could possibly not make the playoffs at that point. And they are playing with everything in front of them, all right? They have everything to gain and everything to lose just off of one game. Ask LSU about that Texas A&M game, and you tell me that Texas A&M team, that didn't mean anything to them. You know what that game means to them? If they know LSU, is going to a 12-team playoff, probably doesn't mean a damn thing. But you know what? They said, hey, we can spoil the party here, and that's exactly what happened. You miss out on opportunities like that throughout the season, and every game loses its luster because when LSU and Alabama play, let's say like both teams have one loss, they're going at it. Both teams are in the top 10 or top 10, close to top 5 range, right? The loser of that game is not getting punished for losing that football game. And that's exactly what will happen. It'll be just like the NFL when you go and talk at the bar with your buddies, and let's say like the Cowboys beat the Giants or whatever, and in the next week it doesn't matter because it was just one week. It has no meaning of significance unless it happens in the playoffs. And that is what that is the difference between what college football is and what these other sports are. Well, everybody says, well, look at March Madness, right? Look at college baseball. They let so many teams in, and obviously those playoff formats are great. Like March Madness is an amazing time of the year. College baseball, I love college baseball. I love watching the super regionals. I love watching all of that. But you're talking about sports that are based off of the postseason, right? College football is what it is because of what the regular season is and what the regular season means. It is not a postseason based sport. Yes, you have to crown a champion. Yes, that game is the end all be all, but nobody starts watching college basketball really hard until March, until these sports. NCAA basketball is developed and marketed themselves to where it is a postseason event. Like that game against Duke and North Carolina is one of the most viewed games every year, and that game means not a damn thing. All right, that game means absolutely nothing. But outside of Duke and North Carolina fans, right? The bragging rights thing. You know why? Because in a month everybody in the whole country, 68 teams are gonna have a chance to do what maybe only a couple teams actually went through the grind of the regular season and deserve to do. But like I said, then I hear the pushback. Well, there'll be upsets, right? And then the thing is it's not gonna be, you might obviously have a couple upsets. Like upsets not like thing, but you guys do realize like a team, I believe Tulane is the group of 5 team this year, right? A team like Tulane in a playoff format against Power 5 teams would never survive. You have to realize that the sports that we're talking about are completely different. Football, basketball, and baseball are completely different sports. Baseball is a team game, right? Football is a team game, obviously, but basketball is kind of more of the individual. Like if you have a good player, like he can kind of take over the game for you and kind of lead the guys in that direction. So basketball is kind of the outlier here, and baseball is just such an unpredictable sport. You can have a guy in the postseason who's a great pitcher and can shut down the offense and kind of do its thing. In football, this is why group of 5 teams don't belong in the playoffs majority of the years, right? Because you have to use logic when you think of this thing. You can't sit here and say, oh, well, Tulane, had a great season. They deserve to make the playoffs. No, they don't. They lost 2 games, all right? A group of 5 team that lost 2 games does not belong in the playoffs. Not even games that they lost to Power 5 teams. They lost a group of 5 teams. So I don't want to see Tulane in my playoff get blown out, I don't want to see that, because there's a difference between playing group of 5 teams and Power 5 teams, especially Power 5 teams at the elite level that they're going to be playing, like Ohio State's, Alabama's, Georgia's, like whoever they would get matched up with. It wouldn't matter, all right, because Tulane don't have the dudes. All right, yeah, you might get the unicorn every now and then where maybe something magical happens and a bunch of breaks go their way, but Tulane don't have guys that can compete with the guys. Like, football is a physically dominating sport. Like, their offensive line and their defensive line would just absolutely, like, my man is bigger, stronger, and faster than yours. All right, and that is how we're going to win this football game. That's the mentality you have to think about when you think about these Power 5 and Group of 5 games. Tulane wouldn't have a shot. Tulane doesn't deserve to be in a playoff, all right? Maybe if they were undefeated, we saw Cincinnati made the playoffs, right? And that's awesome because Cincinnati deserved to be in the playoffs absolutely last year, all right? And we seen what the difference is between a group of 5, a elite group of 5 team and an elite Power 5 team. The gap is just so wide that people just turn the blinders on and they see undefeated, they see Cinderella, and this is March Madness, right? They have that. This is March Madness. Anybody can beat anybody, and it's just not true. All right, it's just absolutely not true. All right, we're going to get off of that subject for a little bit. All right, we're going to talk about a lot of the pushback I get also on this thing is, well, the playoffs is always the same 4 teams, right? It'd be nice to get new teams in there, right? Well, since you mentioned it, since 2014, we've had the 4-team playoff, and not a single time have we had the same 4 teams in the playoff at one time. And that is wild. Yes, the college football world was dominated by Alabama. It was dominated by Clemson. They made it every single year, right? And they played a championship like 3 years in a row. But all those other teams had the same opportunities during the season as those teams. And guess what, guys? In a 12-team playoff, Clemson would have made it. Alabama would have made it. Ohio State would have made it. And we would have been in the same situation we be in now. Right? We're worrying about Alabama and Clemson and all of them beating all these other mediocre teams that would have made the playoffs, like Utah, USC, all them other teams that had no business making the playoffs. They would have had to play against the Clemsons, Alabamas, and they would have got boat raced just like, they did back in the day. Right? Because those teams are still head and shoulders. So why do we want to reward those teams, right, that had bad seasons this year and lost 2+ games? We want to reward them with the playoffs just because hypothetically we think they are better. Like this argument blows my mind, right? With the 14 playoff this year, everybody lost their mind about TCU, right? TCU is not that good. Well, guess what? TCU did everything they needed to do to make the playoffs, right? Their only loss is a team that they beat by double digits on the road in the regular season in overtime. All right, so it's like they were like an inch away from winning the football game. All right, so the people in their mind, well, they're like, well, Alabama would beat them by 30. Well, you know what? Good thing that we don't base our rankings and stuff off of hypotheticals. The crap with Nick Saban this past week was an absolute joke. The thing about, well, who would be favored? Obviously y'all would be favored. You got 15 NFL players on your team. TCU probably has like 3. Get out of here. Obviously you'd be favored, but that is, good thing we don't base the results off of who was favored, because you know what? LSU wasn't, or Alabama wasn't favored, or was favored double digits against LSU, favored against Tennessee, and what happened? They lost both of those games. All right. So why would we want to invite these teams back into a scenario where they can win the whole thing when in the regular season they didn't feel like they deserved it? All right, and obviously this thing has crazy amount of flaws, right? When you start something new, you completely have it flawed from day one. You are going to be asking football players, right? And yes, we have NIL. Yes, the top 5%ers all make a decent amount of money, a livable, expenses, nothing close to what they actually deserve and make for the universities. But that's a different topic. But hear me out when I say this. If you're thinking about this from a player, I guarantee you, if you asked every player in the NCAA, you said, are you in favor of playoff expansion? I guarantee you over 80% of them would say no. 80% of them. You know why? Because college football is a grind, all right? You are in camp from August 1st, late June, right? You start camp, and you have to grind it out until December, all right? And then you have bowl practice, and then you play the bowl game or a playoff game or so on and so on. We already play 15 games. If you win the national championship, you're playing in 15 games. You're going to be asking college kids that aren't compensated correctly, majority of them, like the guy, and you just got to tell them, hey, I need you to go out there and play for my entertainment, I need you to go out there and lay your body on the line even though you're hurt and you've already played 15 games this year. I need you to play 2 or 3 more for me, buddy, because we got to make this playoff thing happen. If you don't get a bye in the first round playoff, you are possibly playing 17 football games. The NFL plays 17 games, and those are grown men that get compensated fairly, all right, based on what they deserve. All right, a college kid, that's from, Hammond, Louisiana, is the backup offensive lineman on LSU. That guy is an offensive lineman on LSU, is going out there and putting his body on the line. He ain't making jack, what. All right, to compensate that, and he's the one that's got to go risk him, and he's just got to do it for the love of the game because it's for our entertainment, not, like I said, I think you would get a much different reaction than you would think from the players when you talk about playoff expansion. You ask former players, they say the same exact thing, like, I would have hated that, the grind that it takes on your body already, right, is already substantial as it is. So why would you want to add more games to that? I don't know. And then another factor that you're gonna have to realize is like, think about teams like Georgia, right? Or taking like Michigan this past, conference championship week, right? Or TCU's, or whoever, right, is in those spots. Um, you're gonna start seeing what the NFL is now, right? What happens in the last 3 weeks of the NFL season? Y'all know the starters get rested. All right, I just can't wait. I can't hope to God it never happens, right? But I can't wait till the day that Georgia's number one, undefeated, rolled everybody by 30, and then they roll out last game of the year against Georgia Tech, and I get to watch, the third strings play. Because Kirby walks up to the podium and he says, well, we just want to make sure nobody got hurt so we can rest them up for the playoffs since we've already pretty much clinched our spot. Oh my God, the day that happens, I don't know, I might click the TV off. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I might click it off. That'd be a devastating day. I can't imagine what that would even do. Because the way it's structured is stupid as hell anyway, right? Because you're taking the champions of the conferences, right? So Georgia playing Georgia Tech means absolutely nothing. Clemson playing South Carolina means absolutely nothing. It's a non-conference game. You've already clinched the conference. You're already in the conference title game. Why do you even need to worry about that game? Yeah, it was a rivalry game. Who cares? Let them have it. Let them have it. They're not making the playoffs. They are not making the playoffs. We ain't worried about Georgia Tech. We ain't worried about South Carolina. We ain't worried about nobody like that, right? All we care about is getting our players healthy and ready for the next week, because that game actually matters now, for our seeding in this playoff. You do realize, like, if Purdue's 8-4 behind, would have won the Big Ten this year against Michigan, like, they would have been a top 4 seed. Like, the top 4 seeds in this playoff this year would have been like Clemson, Georgia, Kansas State. Like, what? Like, nobody wants to watch that, man. Get out of here. We're crazy. I'm just, more and more I talk, the more and more I think y'all are crazy about this playoff stuff, man. 4 teams is absolutely perfect. Another downside, right? More players are going to start opting out, right? If your team has 3 or 4 losses, right? We're going to be opting out of regular season games now, right? It's not just going to be the bowl games. It's going to be, well, we got 2 games left, but we already got 3 or 4 losses. We're not making the playoffs this year. I'm going to just go ahead and shut it down. And I'll see y'all in the NFL type mentality. That's going to start happening. And then it's like, what do you do with the other teams? What do you do with the teams that were good enough to make a bowl game? And, like, so you're just basing the whole sport off of 12 teams now. Like, I don't know. There's just so many flaws with the playoffs, and it's like you give up so much for so little of a result, right? Because are the results really going to change? Are you going to get new champions? Yeah, you're going to get exciting games for about a 2 to 3 week period. But what about, the exciting games I get to see week 1 through week 12? Like, I mean, it's just, I don't know. To me, it feels like you give up so much for so little. And it's just, and I just don't see where college football reaps the benefits. Besides the big money guys, ESPN makes a bunch of money off of this, and that's the only reason why we're expanding. We're not expanding because they love the game and they want to see a real champion like crown. They're doing it because they want to make more money. More games means more money, and that's exactly what's going to happen. That's the only reason they're even doing this. That's why they pushed it up, and they didn't plan things out, right? They have this crappy format where you're going to be hold on. We'll go back in a second. You're going to be asking fans to travel to neutral sites for every single playoff game. Every single playoff game, you're going to be asking the fan bases to travel. Like, ain't nobody showing up to that first round game. Like, what? If I'm going to spend my hard-earned money, right? If I'm going to spend my hard-earned money on a game, right? I'm just going to wait it out and wait till, oh, you guessed it, the semifinals, where there's only 4 teams left and my team has a realistic shot of making a national championship game. I'm not wasting my money going to a first round game in Provo, Utah. Like, what? Come on, bro. That shit don't even make no sense. Y'all know it don't make no sense. But, like I said, I'm not going to talk much about it. This has been a long behind episode. As you can see, I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff. And if you're still watching, God bless you. God bless you. And if you're still watching, I already know you're probably subscribed. And I thank you. And if you're not subscribed, you know what to do. All right? If you watch this far, you know what to do. Go ahead and subscribe, man. We're going to be start making content like this all the time. And I want to know what you guys think. I want to know if you guys feel the same way I do. Or if you're like, man, you sound stupid as hell and you need to shut this podcast down. Either way, I'll be here next week and we'll be talking about something else. And I can't wait to see you guys. So you guys have a great work week. It is Sunday. If you're watching this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, heck, you might watch it next weekend. I don't know. It is what it is. Have a good holidays, man. Have a great rest of your weekend. Hopefully you enjoy the day. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.